Hi, everyone. Welcome to Compliance Conversations this Thursday evening. Thank you for joining the conversation, and for those of you who are going to join us somewhere along the line, I'm very appreciative of that. I'd like to welcome my guest. I know you've seen the flyers. It's Bonginkosi Z Ntabeni, and he's a CA and very much passionate about the world of finance and sharing knowledge and educating people about financial literacy. And this is what we're here to talk about today. So thank you for joining me, Bongi, to have this hopefully stimulating conversation.
I hope so too. Thanks for having me on the show, Kudzai. Is it a show? Is it a podcast? Yeah, but then it's good to be
We'll
here.
call it a show. We'll call it a show.
All right,
It's fine.
cool,
It
great.
sounds a bit more glamorous.
All right, that's fine. I think maybe just at the beginning there, I'm a CFA Charterholder, not a CA, but I can understand. I can understand the confusion. CAs are a lot more popular and famous. So.
No, I think it's not even the case. I think my brain did a thing there that it was not supposed to do. So yes, a CFA charter holder who we are very privileged to have with us today. So Bongi, we're just going to jump straight into the conversation. And for anyone who's joining us, if you've got a question that you'd like to ask around anything that we discuss in the course of this hour, pop it in the chat and we'll be happy to talk to your question. But before we jump into that and start looking at people's questions, financial literacy, financial wellness, why should we care? Why is it important for us to care about our money and what we're doing with it?
Yeah, I think you will hear many variations of the story of how your money is probably the longest relationship you ever have, and how like money is a tool and an avenue for expression. So if you're not financially literate, you probably are not going to be able to express yourself properly, purely because we express ourselves through money, be it the way we dress, what we buy, what we consume, how we care for people. We need money to do that. So I think money is a subset of who you are, but it's a very critical subset because that's actually how we then get to know who you are. So that's why it's important for you to be financially literate so that you actually can deliberately manifest in the world. If you're not, then you have a situation where life happens to you and you end up running the risk of having this whole victim mentality or whatever else it is. So you'll do yourself a great favor by just understanding how these things work so that whenever you want to do thing X or thing Y, pay fees, go on holiday, you actually know how to go about doing that. So I think that's probably why it's important, which is why I would not necessarily want to divorce financial literacy from knowing yourself. I think the starting point is actually knowing yourself. And then you can move to the what then do I want to do? How does money and financial literacy fit into that?
Okay, but when we talk about financial literacy, and I'm going to expose myself here a little bit, my first thought, as I was coming up and growing up, financial literacy, I translated that to, okay, that means I must know accounts and balance sheets and all of that sort of thing. And I don't want to speak for all compliance people out there or legal people out there, that was just not my strong suit. I felt very intimidated by it. And I'm like, okay, so this thing of financial literacy, do I now have to go and do a course and all of that sort of situation? So, just talk to me a little bit more about, so what actually is it when you say someone is financially literate?
You can start by understanding how much change you should get. I think that's a great starting point. If you can do that, I think you're okay. You don't necessarily have to go into analysis of corporates and the like for you to be financially literate. I think at a very base level, it is understanding what a certain action will result in, and then deliberately trying to influence that. So, for instance, if I spend this $3 on this Coca-Cola, what will that mean? It means I have $3 less, but I've enjoyed the Coca-Cola. And then, okay, can you then say a week later I spent that $3 on the Coca-Cola and actually acknowledge and record that? if you're doing that, you're already quite literate, just by the fact that you know what you're spending on, you're intentionally spending on it, and then you can track and report that, right? But then it then broadens from that to actually going from a place of I understand change to I now want to actually move in a certain direction. So at a very base level, it's actually just understanding the action and the reaction around money, right? And then it can then go very complex to how do I play around with whatever is in the finance world to bring about what I want. So at a very base level, I'll say it's understanding the action and the reaction around money. If I spend today, I don't have money to spend tomorrow. If I spend $10 today and yet I made $5, it means I owe someone $5. If you can start at that level, then you're on your way. So financial literacy is being deliberate for me around money and what it does for you and what you do with it. And then you can then go on to say, how then do I actually achieve goal X or goal Y? And then you start then educating yourself around, well, this means that in finance, $1 today is probably better than $1 tomorrow. But then if I defer getting that $1 today, how much should you give me so that I get that $1 tomorrow? So now that's you now understanding that if I don't buy my Coke today and I hold on to my money, what should you give me for not having the Coke today? But then it started with that very simple, I want a Coke or buy it today. To no, I want a Coke, but I will not buy it today. If I buy it in 4 months, what happens to my money in the interim such that I get a Coke and something else in 4 months? So yeah.
So it's really about being, excuse me, it's about being aware, like being awake to, as much as you can be awake to, your life goals and how you want to develop your career and, anything else that's going on in your life. You also need to have an awareness about your money. How much is coming in? How much am I spending? How much am I saving? And if I'm spending and having a goal at a particular end, is that saving contributing to that goal, or is it taking away from that goal? And then learning how to then play with your money to make it work for you as much as possible is like now when you're talking about, beyond just being aware, but now actively managing your money. Did I say, am I showing awareness?
So you've taken that model and then you've like blown it up, right, to a very macro scale. So here the transaction was $3 and a Coke, but then your life is more than buying a Coke. So yeah, you probably would want to start at the top and say, actually, my life is about educating my kids. My life is about giving back to society. My life is about traveling. And so then you start right there by understanding yourself and all the things that you need to do. And then you then realize the things I need to do need money to be achieved. And I'm probably making X amount of money. And the X amount of money I am making is literally linked to myself. So if I do not work, I'm not making money. Then you ask yourself, can I make that much money, right? So you start with that problem set at a very high level now before you break it down into the Coke transaction. And then you can distribute that around whatever it is that means. It means to be kudzai, what it means to be kudzai today and what it means to be kudzai in the future, right? What it means to be kudzai tomorrow and 6 years from today. And then you conceptualize that, and then you then break it down into probably what you exercise, diet, and your finances. And then when we come into the finances now, you need to be well aware of what you're doing and why.
Yeah, so, no, for sure. And I mean, and I know we were talking offline before we went live, and I was saying, back in the day, it was one of those things where, if it wasn't for my pension, my salary literally would come in, I would pay my bills, rent, whatever it was, and then whatever was left, I was like, okay, let's have some fun with it, And, then one day I'm like looking at one of these online calculators, and I shared one the other day on social media, and I got like this shock of my life in terms of, oh my gosh, I need to get my act together in terms of my money, because the future requirements versus my capacity to earn and all of that sort of stuff were not going to be in good shape had I carried on that mindset of just, money in, money out today and during the month. So it requires a decision to be made. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think now you didn't really get into the beans of the whole situation, right? So now we've conceptualized who Kudzai is and
Mhm.
what she wants to achieve today, tomorrow, and hopefully in 6 years' time. And then the question is how do you go about achieving those goals, right?
Mm.
So now you then have a situation where you start working, and if you're like me, you used to say when I'm done with grade one, I'm going to go to grade two, then I'm going to go to grade seven, then I'm going to go to A level, then I'll do varsity, and then I'll have a lot of money, right? And that
And then you got
and
there and
that
you're like, what happened?
right? And then the next thing you probably get a good job. I would assume that most of the people listening in got good jobs, and then you think you're set, right? And then money is going into your pension, and so you think, okay, fine, the organization is doing something to look after me, and then you blow whatever you have, right? If you're
Mm.
fortunate enough to have a structure that already demands that you spend X amount of money to meaningful things every month, then you won't necessarily blow everything. But
Yeah.
if you don't have such a structure already, then you run the risk of blowing everything on pretty much things you will not be able to identify later on, right? So now being literate is that whole understanding action and consequence, like I said. So now you
Mm.
understand I'm earning X amount of money. I would like to stabilize at this level of expenditure. Right now I'm here. How do I enhance my earning capacity and what else can earn for me, right? Such that
Mm.
I can generally consume at this level and be creating some extra value, right? That's where that comes in. And it goes further than that because a lot of people, if you are exposed to the Zim hyperinflationary cycles, you probably had a good job. You probably managed to get a mortgage and get a house and you're the pension and you figured, you know what, my kids will go to college and the like, hyperinflation steps in and wipes out everything. A lot of people's
Mm.
worlds were destroyed immediately because in their minds they thought having money in a pension is being financially literate. To a certain extent it is, but then are you actually interacting with the action and reaction? Do you actually
Mm.
understand what it means for you to put money in a pension? What does that contract say? So at the end of it, what are you getting? Are you getting
Mm.
cows, bricks? Are you getting a currency that's no longer going to mean anything? What recourse do you have? So how should you move around your money to protect it, to store its value, right? So these then are the intricacies that you actually need to understand. So if you're then going to endeavor to be financially literate, this is how I'd frame it for 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 you compliant kind of
For
guys.
people such as myself.
Yes, consider yourself ultimately responsible for the financial outcome of your life, right?
Mm.
If that's step one. Step two, educate yourself enough to direct someone who knows more than you. So what I mean by that is you don't necessarily have to be the guy on the ground. You've got people like me to do that for you, right?
Mm.
And pretty much based on any brief, any guy who's doing financial advice should be able to get more or less or approximate the outcome you want. But you need to understand the outcome you want, right? Because if you do not do that, and I'm an asset manager or I'm a pension fund and I'm collecting your hard-earned dollars every day, I invest them into properties XYZ in the name of the pension fund or in the name of whichever other financier of that asset. And
Mm.
I simply say I need a rental out of it. So when that rental loses value due to hyperinflation and then your pension more than halves in size, I'm not giving you the house that I built with your money. I am giving you the rental that's now meaningless, right? So now the layers are
Mm.
now increasing, right? Because now
Yeah.
you you know that the action is putting money in a pension, right? And then the
Yeah.
consequences, you are entitled to a rental or to X amount of money, which is susceptible to devaluation, right? So how do you defend against devaluation? You initiate
Mm.
another action, right? And then you anticipate a reaction. So that's how the whole loop then develops from buying a Coke to something that sounds complicated, but really it's not. It's if I'm putting in $2 today, how do I make sure in real terms it's $2? So if I'm deferring my $3, right, of
Mm.
buying a Coke today, and I'm saying I'm doing it such that in 4 months' time I get two Cokes, And if a Coke in 4 months' time is going for $5, I should be getting $10 and not 6. So that's that model now being expanded. I don't know if I'm ranting, but yeah.
I think you didn't lose me. I think I followed you. But I think the takeaway that I want to highlight from that is it's an active process. That was one of the things that it's not about just, okay, some money went somewhere, I'll see it when I'm 60 years old and need to make a withdrawal. You really have to monitor it, be having conversations with your financial manager or financial advisor and understanding exactly what it is you're getting out of your investment. And if your investment is actually suitable for the goals that you want to achieve. So let's say I want to retire at 50. What are they investing in to make sure that I'm earning, towards achieving that goal? And is it a high risk something, a low risk something, high risk, high return, all of that good stuff. But it's about actively participating in the process. And like I said, I'm going to expose myself because I was very, very bad at that. And, even now I'll confess, sometimes I kind of I get overwhelmed by life, and, you just get your statement from XYZ Incorporated. You're like, okay, this is how it's going. And, don't actually sit down and like, what, I need to sit down and really understand the losses, the gains, and if I need another conversation to make sure that my money is actually working as opposed to depreciating before my very eyes and I'm not paying attention to it.
Mm-hmm. Using technical words, they depreciate it. Well, all right. I
said I was in compliance. I didn't say we don't know words like depreciation.
All right. I think that's pretty much it, right? And the beauty is if you develop your model and you start by understanding yourself, that I don't like reading this statement. Or, what, I actually do not want to be actively doing this every day. If you start with that understanding, then you put in place measures, right, to make sure that things still go according to more or less what you want without you being actively involved. It's like how you'd say, okay, fine, I'm going for a day out with the kids, so white is probably not the greatest idea, right? Yeah. It's really that simple. And then you say, okay, fine, probably going with the blue jeans or whatever else it is. It's the same thing. It's to say, all right, fine. For me, I actually get it. I want to blow my money. So before my money hits my expenditure account, X is going to whatever, and I cannot get to it, right?
Yeah.
And once it's there, I've talked to my advisor. I need you to be achieving 1, 2, 3. I like a lot of risk right now. I'm happy to lose 20% of whatever I put in, as long as more or less we are exposing ourselves to a potential upside of, I don't know, whatever, billion %, right? And please, if any of my investments hit such a mark, call me. I need to make a decision on how to move. Sometimes it's really that simple, but it starts with you actually saying, this is me, this is what I want to achieve, this is what I'm earning, and that whole thing. So understanding you is quite key, so that you then put in place a strategy that helps you get to whatever place you want to get to.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really great example, because like you're saying, if I know that if there's a chocolate in my house, it's going to be eaten, so I put in place measures to not have chocolate in my house except for on very special occasions. So similarly with your money, if you know that if your salary hits your account, the first thing you do if you have accesses to it is go on a shopping spree, then you should be having like debit orders in place, for example, that automatically are sending your funds without any action required on your part to your investments, your savings, whatever you've chosen, so that you're securing and making sure that that's taken care of, so that when it is time to, have a good time in Zara or wherever you want to shop, that is taken care of, and you've put in the measures to kind of achieve that. But something else that you mentioned that I wanted to speak about is about, having that conversation with your financial manager, that if my money gets to this point or the market does this, please just, give me a call. Let's figure out the strategy going forward. I think a lot of people probably feel like that interaction with the financial advisor is something that's reserved for potentially people who are dealing with high net, millions of dollars. Me with my 1,000 Rand debit order a month or whatever into the account, is my financial advisor even going to be worried about giving me a call because, XYZ happens? So, in terms of, having that confidence to go in, whether your goals, whether you're dealing with millions or thousands, what can a person do to just make sure that they're, taking the necessary actions so that one day they are that person who's got the millions that need to be managed, because you're starting somewhere, right?
Yeah. So, okay. Honestly, you're going to be hard pressed to find a financial manager who's going to be talking to you for over 1,000 Rand. I think we need to start there. But not to say that you do not start.
Example,
yeah. So any small amount, like look, any small amount. So when you're looking at technically dealing with finances for individuals, right? Remember, there's a limited amount of people who are doing this, and if they're on a percentage, that the more amount of money you have, the larger the 2% of the thing is, or whatever else it is. So what you will find is within a certain income bracket, you are boxed, right? You're boxed into this product, which more or less you all just don't have a lot of discretion. But to be fair, that product will have, before you invest in it, it will have those things in place. It will have what happens in the event of that. These are the risks. This is what you should look out for. If the monetary policy says X, Y, Z, it means this for you. So those will be there. You probably cannot customize them. So the thing then would be to understand what that product means, right, before you buy into it, because ultimately the product is supposed to protect you and still achieve your goal without you being actively involved in it. Because after all, we've bought 1 million of you with 1,000 Rand, right? So it's 1,000 million. Is that a billion? So now it's 1 billion Rand. So it makes sense, right? But then it's 1,000 Rand for an individual. So I cannot have 1 million people with 1,000 Rand calling me, right? Yeah. But then they need to understand what we agreed when they signed up, right? That this is how it will act. This is how it will move. So then your responsibility is to track if your manager is doing that, and then to call them if they are not, right? And then as you move along the wealth ladder, then they might have temporary, because right at the top, you actually have businesses dedicated to a single person's money, like a whole team, right? So it changes, but then it does not then take away your responsibility to understand what certain things in your environment mean for your money. And I think on that whole thing, I also want to talk about something that's quite important. That's when you take a loan from a bank and you cannot repay, because it could probably happen. The best thing you can do for yourself is go to the bank and talk to them before you default, right? Businesses restructure their loans all the time. It helps their credit rating. It takes a knock, but it's not as bad as if they default. Individuals think it's taboo to go to a bank and say, guys, I said I want to give you $100 a month, but then let's talk about how we make it 70 Rand a month, right? Yeah. It's a better conversation to have, and they can do that for you before you owe them $100 which you didn't pay, right? So you really should not be deterred from going to talk to the bank or your advisor about your money. Go and talk to them about it, because it's eventually that money will accumulate, right? And more often than not, if you luck yourself into money, I think we all know the stories of people who win the lotto and then they are broke like 3 years later. Yes. It's because their behavior has never changed. We've also heard of stories of people who have lost millions and then they make them back. It's because they have a pattern of behavior that's generally going to increase their chances of making money and keeping it. So you're better off just having that attitude from the get-go.
Yeah. And I mean, there's this show on television, to your point, that just boggles my mind. It's about people who have received lump sums of money, like millions of rands, and like next year it's all gone. And it just actually shows that it's not about how much money you receive or how much money you earn if your behaviors, your underlying behaviors and mentality about money are not such that you can, grow that money, use that money wisely and make it work for you and make it last. You could have 100 million today, and if your money, your relationship with money is just bad, it will be gone tomorrow. So it's about, and which is again why I wanted to have this conversation. It's about whether you're starting in your career and you're earning, I don't know, 20,000 Rand or whatever every month, or 15,000. I don't know what salaries are looking like these days, let's say at an entry level, but let's say that's what you're earning. Start being responsible now. Start having behaviors and a relationship with money such that when you are now in a position that you're an executive and your total package is, I don't know how many millions, or you've got your own business and you're making millions, or you win the lotto, whatever the case may be, you're actually in a position for that money to work for you. Because I think people really feel like, if I just had 1 million Rand, if I just had 50 million Rand, my life would be sorted. And it actually, no, it won't. If you don't know how to manage money, it actually won't be sorted.
Yeah, you could probably create more problems than you had before you got that money. So yeah.
Yes, you're going to go live in a 20 million Rand house, buy a 20 million Rand house, which increases your expenses and maintenance, and then before you know it, you're broke. So yeah.
Exactly. So I think that's the attitude people should generally have around that. So you do yourself a favor by understanding what it actually means. I know there are a lot of rules of thumb around money. Like I think it was offline. You're talking about, you just thought it was about just put away 15% or whatever. Yeah, it's obviously people then try to come up with these heuristics that just help you to be in the ballpark, right? At least you're not like lost. But the greatest thing you can do for yourself is actually just be very deliberate about your life and your life outcome. Because another thing that's quite interesting is that most of us are not going to be rich, honestly. We're going to be average or less, right? Probably the audience listening, probably they're most likely going to be middle class and higher than middle class, right? But then it's not everyone who's going to be like filthy, right?
Uber wealthy, yeah.
Yeah. But then it does not mean that your life will not be great. It does not mean that you will not enjoy your life. It simply means that you need to understand what reality is around you. And the reality is, more often than not, by the time you die, you're not going to be worth 5 million American. You're not. But you don't need to wait until you have $1 million for you to go on a holiday with your family, for instance. You do not need to be worth 1 million to be able to educate your children, right? So then what do you need? You need those behaviors. You need to be deliberate about what you do, right? Such that you understand that, okay, fine, holidays are important to me. I am making 12,000 Rand a month, right? That's 144 a year if it's net. What holiday can I honestly save for my family and I, right? Fine. You work it out. There's a package there for you and your family. You get on the bus, you go wherever, you blow your 9,000 Rand on a 2-day, 3-day holiday. You have ticked a very important box in your life. You've gone on holiday. You've had quality time with your family. You've exposed your kids to something that's better, to something they can aspire to, right?
Yes.
On what you thought was a small amount of money. I also know stories of people who've had a lot growing up. Their parents had that job, X amount of money, and they've never been on holiday because it wasn't something that mattered to the family. And when the kids go away and the parents now have to retire, they're now saying to the kids, we took you to private school, you need to feed us, right? Because they were not deliberate about that. It just so happened that they lucked into a time frame where you could just go to work and pretty much do a kudzai before she was financially literate, pay your bills, blow it, right? And if the firm is going to be paying your fees, great. But the moment you are 60 or the moment you're 55, those guys will not promote their subordinates because then they won't have a job. If they don't have a job, they don't have anything, right? It's because they were not deliberate, probably at an earlier stage, to say at a certain point in time, I will not be earning as much as I am now. Because remember, theoretically, you're supposed to start earning and then you plateau, right? And then you leave like the labor force. But remember, by the time you're at this level, you're used to spending like you're at that level. So you need something that's feeding you at this level after you're done. If you're not deliberate about that, you're going to hate your life post retirement, and then what's the point?
You have to face the dreaded downgrade, and I know amongst many people, downgrading for them is just like, I cannot fathom having to live in a smaller house and not drive a Jaguar. It's just like, it's just like a death sentence for them. But for you to be able to have that lifestyle, it's you're talking about it now. You're doing something about it now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, when you get to 55, you cannot sustain maintenance on a Jaguar. You cannot sustain, a 6-bedroom mansion when you're no longer earning money, no matter how successful you were, if you did not plan for that eventuality. And I'm personally a fan of the school of downgrading. When I retire, I'm going to get a 2-bedroom house with me and my husband, and we're going to drive a tiny little car and just keep it moving, because my personal, I guess, nightmare is, to have my like my kids ultimately then having to not live their lives and achieve whatever they, obviously we're sacrificing and sending them to school and all of that, but then now they have to turn around and look after me. So when I think about my financial wellness and literacy, my goal is I need to be able to be self-sustaining in retirement and to remain comfortable in that space. If everything works out and somehow I reach that upper echelon that you said, most of us won't reach that one up there, amazing. But at a bare minimum, I need to be self-sustaining. And I think it's very important, because you always hear about this thing called black tax, right? And I feel it's time. It's time to break the cycle, and if I'm going to break it for my kids, then that is my goal.
But you know what? It's interesting. So two things. First of all, because you are deliberately saying you want to downgrade now, when you do so, it'll feel great, right? It won't be like, oh my gosh, I can no longer afford to do X, Y, Z. I used to be able to do this. You have no idea how many people say that to me. I used to be able to, now I can't, right? Because you probably do not put yourself in that space. And then the second thing that links to that is the whole black tax, right? If you then consider a situation where, if we say most black people from Zim were starting from a low base, and then whatever the first generation did, the second was supposed to build on that. If the first generation were quite deliberate, they should then be able to say, we got to this stage, and this guy's at that stage, but we stay at this stage. But if you're not deliberate about that, if you sacrifice so that your child has a better job than you had, why then do you want them to have that better job, but then with the extra cost of looking after you, right? So you are probably not necessarily deliberate and honest to yourself about it. If you could have said, you know what, I have a great job. When I leave this job, I am broke, right? So when I'm in this job, I'm going to try to get myself the mortgage for a rental property, a mortgage for the house I live in. When I'm done living in the big house, I'm selling it off because I want to spend my money. I'm moving into the what I call the rental property, right? You put that whatever lump sum into an annuity, you're living your life, right? And you're happy your kids are doing whatever they're doing. It's because you're deliberate about it, right? Not to have life happen to you. You can't have life happen to you. And that's what's going to happen if you're not deliberate about your money. I can almost guarantee it, right? You could probably be someone running a business. You're churning out $1 million a year. If you do not consider the fact that this is linked to me, if I am incapacitated, this million is not happening, you're still at risk. Today you've got all this money, the next day you have nothing, right? So these are things that you actually then need to start looking at and thinking about. You could probably do the first thing on your own, which is, this is my life, this is what I want to achieve, this is what I'm about. And then the next level, go to your bank. Great starting point. Walk in there. I want someone to help me with planning my money. If you cannot go to a bank, we have so many asset managers. personal financial planners. In most jurisdictions, you can actually go on a regulator site and they'll actually give you a list of licensed people, so you know they won't necessarily be shady. Start from there. See what you can do about your life today. If you're 22, great. If you're 42, great. If you're 60, great. Do it now, right? If you haven't done it,
better
do it
than
now.
not doing it.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. And I know in South Africa, it's almost part of your banking package that you can get is a free will and some financial access to financial advice and all of that situation. If you actually just pay attention to what your whole package offers you, you can walk in and say, I need to speak to someone about, getting my finances in order. And for them, it's more business, right? They're selling you more products. No one is going to turn you away and be like, you know what, we don't want to deal with you, because it's in their interests to help you. So it's just about exploring all the options that you have available to you, whether it's free resources or, like you're saying, you're going to an asset manager and they're going to want a fee and all of that good stuff. But it's worth investing in doing, because the fact of the matter is none of us is going to work forever. And I'm pretty sure none of us wants to work forever, whether it's in corporate or business or whatever. At some point, you just kind of want to enjoy the fruits of your labor, but you have to make sure you have the fruits. That's my whole my whole thing. Don't be now out here eating other people's fruits.
Exactly. Don't and you know what? All right. There's a crude statement that goes, how are you going to work your whole life for chow? Have you heard that statement?
No, but I get it.
Yeah, like you can't do that, right? You need to be someone who gets to a point where they get to choose. All right, I like teaching children. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go teach third grade mathematics. Great. And not be worried about, am I going to eat? Right? Because you are around for a higher purpose than food, clothes, and shelter. I would hope. That cannot be the only thing. And yet you will find that most of us will be stuck at that level forever.
Which is very sad, because, and I think you touched on it earlier on, that no matter how much you're earning, you have the capacity to look at your life, plan, and say, I'm trying to achieve these goals and make them achievable. I think the thing is, a lot of us sometimes get stuck in that mindset that, I'm going to start saving, or I'm going to start managing my money when I'm now a millionaire. And just like, well, how do you get there if you're not managing? It's like what's the word? Is it an oxymoron? You can't, the one doesn't work without the other.
How do you propose to someone that you're going to be able to start saving when you've got $1 million, right? When it can buy you so many things, when $10 which can probably buy you one thing, you blow, right? So I think
no, absolutely. If you can't stop yourself from spending 100 Rand, how are you going to stop yourself from spending when you have R1 million? And that's just the reality of the matter. You're not, because it's going to appear or feel to you like it's a bottomless pit of darkness, and it's not. In real life, it's not a lot of money.
Yeah, and so I think there's a model of motivation that was presented by, I think it was Russell Bertrand at when he was receiving the Nobel for whatever he did, that prize. And he was pretty much talking about how people have two like primary motivation levels, right? Like a finite level, which is your clothes, food, and shelter. You can only eat so much, you can only put on so many clothes. But they've got a second level, right? Which is infinite, in that it cannot be satisfied, right? And that's where people who cannot already sacrifice then struggle with, because you can buy one car, but if you can buy one car and you have enough money for 3 cars, you buy 3 cars. And if you can buy a new car every year, then you start buying a new car every year, right? And so you keep acquiring because you will never be satisfied. So you will never actually get to that point where you say, okay, fine, now I am saving X%. So you might as well start today. And there's nothing like a small amount, because there's a lot of power in compounding, right? And I want to look at it as though you're giving yourself an option. If I don't use my money today and I make more money, so theoretically, if I don't spend my whole salary this month and I can make it to next month, I've got twice my salary, right? So theoretically, I've got twice the options, right? So I keep increasing my options, and there's a lot more value in options in situations where you don't necessarily think that there won't be a tomorrow, right? As long as you're quite certain and confident that there's a tomorrow that's more or less like the today we have, there's a lot of value in options. But then if you have the view that the world is ending tomorrow, then yeah, blow your money, right? But then
all well and good until you wake up tomorrow and the world is still there.
Yeah. A lot of financial literacy for me starts from understanding yourself and your view on life and what you want to achieve. If you can articulate that, and then you start linking your financial actions with what really matters in your life. So when you do not get that Coke, you understand that you are not getting a Coke today because you are taking your child to Harvard in 12 years' time. Then it makes more sense, right? As opposed to, why am I not getting the Coke? I want the Coke, I'll get the Coke. But you have not made real what you're losing by getting the Coke today, right? So, yeah.
So it's about having that honest conversation with yourself. It's not just, it's because I think sometimes we rationalize and like, but it's just a Coke today, or just, I'm just going to max my credit card today, and I'll figure it out tomorrow. And when bonus comes, I'll sort it out, and all of that sort of situation. We all know that we tell ourselves, I mean, I am not exempt from rationalizing things, but at the end of the day, if we teach ourselves to then say, okay, fine, I'm going to max my credit card, and I've got now that debt, I've got the interest on that. What if I just don't do that thing and make sure that I'm doing something useful with the money, or saving and all of that? Like, have the counter argument with yourself, And I know in Joburg, for example, there's and you were talking about cars earlier on. There's so much temptation, and I love a beautiful car with the next person, right? But I always wonder, I'm like, there is so much money in Joburg, because the cars that people are driving are like 30,000 rand. What's this thing in monthly installments? And this is taking. I'm getting to my biggest money mistake with this narrative that I'm going to. 30,000 rand for the car, and all of that. I'm like, wow, people are doing so well. Until I actually had some conversations with people who actually do, and you're like, actually no, a lot of people are driving these things, and like it's like 50% of your salary is going towards a car installment, and it's one of those things where you have to, because the pressures are real, because you want to feel like you're doing well in life. You want to feel like, what, I've worked hard, I deserve this thing, I'm going to go buy myself a new car as a treat. But then is it really something that you need if you're saying that down the line, maybe you can't take your kids to varsity? So I was talking about the cars to tell you that I made that mistake. That was my mistake. So you can hear everyone who's on this chat can judge me. You know what? I bought it was a beautiful car. It was a BMW. I loved that thing. It was so beautiful. But my mistake, I had a couple of mistakes in making that decision. The first one was that I looked at the installment and the insurance. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. I was on a good job. I was like, I can do this. I can pay this monthly installment, fine. I did not look at everything else that comes with owning a car. I'm exposing my naivete here, but I just didn't. Like, what happens if I need to replace the tires? What happens if I scratch it? And on those cars, you scratch the door, they want to replace the whole thing. And trust me, I went through the experience and I got the shock of my life. And as much as I loved it, I was very happy, and I felt so free the day I gave it back. I was like, you know what? Take your car. I'm not doing this anymore. But it's a difficult thing for a lot of people to do, to actually, one, accept that, maybe I did not adequately assess the impact of this thing. When you only look at a certain component like an installment, there's maintenance, there's all sorts of stuff that goes with it. And then making that decision, we were talking about downgrading earlier, to be like, I actually cannot afford this car in its entirety comfortably, so that if your tire bursts today, you're not sitting in your house with your hand in your head wondering what's going to happen. So I was just, it's a lesson I had to learn, and trust me, I still want to drive that car, a car like that one day, but I decided I'm going to drive a car like that when it doesn't hurt if something goes wrong with it. I can comfortably do it, it's not a thing. I'm looking at the comments, and Brian is saying the car has social values, sis, so that's important too. You've got this. I'll say to Brian.
It's actually quite interesting because
yeah, go ahead.
If how much social value is, it's actually quite important, because when you look at not that I would buy one, not that I'm saying that was a great financial decision, but if it's a deliberate decision, right? If you understand yourself, so if you're going to look at like what Maslow and motivation, it's your physical needs, and then your safety needs, and then your belonging needs, right? It's quite important, once you can feed yourself, you can clothe yourself, and you're safe, to belong. So if you're a young professional who's at a fancy law firm or an investment bank, you want to belong, right? And that car is a way to belong, right? It probably drives a lot of that decision. So understanding that in itself is a great starting point to say, okay, this is where I actually belong, right? Or this is how I am going to identify and belong with the people around me. It's not going to be a car, right? And then you take away that social value. But if you're not deliberate about it, if you're not watching yourself, you're gonna get that car. And I think my mistake is actually kind of sort of similar. I tricked myself, or I lied to myself that I wasn't making enough. I wasn't making enough money to be investing, right? So I was literally just spending my money. Why? Because so if you're actually a professional in the finance space, I know you work for an investment bank, the numbers like 5 million is thrown around like it's nothing, right? Like, no, that transaction was tiny, it was 8 million. Right, great. And then you're thinking, 8 million is tiny, so why am I wasting my time with this peanut?
Why am I worrying about this little 30,000 when people are talking about millions?
Yeah, right. So then that was a mistake. I probably didn't do anything for my investment, and I also made the mistake of thinking, yeah, well, you know what? I'm probably going to work for the next 50 years. I can just write it out for the first 5 years, right? And then start later, because I knew I had to start. But then, not knowing that my environment was actually going to get worse than it was when I started working, had I started back then, I would have given myself more options now, right? So my mistake actually stays with me, right? It's like, right, yeah.
It's not like me who could just get rid of the car. Yeah.
So if you really want to get yourself into a space where you're actually aligning with what matters to you and what you should be doing, try a simple exercise. Literally record every buck you spend. Record it. And then at the end of the month, just you could even start by saying, 4 things matter to me. 1, 2, 3, 4. This matters to me so much so that I'll spend 20% on it, 30%, whatever. And then actually try to compare that with what you actually do. More often than not, those will not match unless you're very deliberate, right? And then you can start now realizing that by buying a Coke and a burger every day is adds up, right? At the end of the month, it adds up. That's 22 burgers, right? If you're going to work or whatever it is, right? Or take out lunch, or eating out 4 times a week, right? Or whatever else it is. It adds up. Then at the end of the month, you can actually say, what have I spent, right? That will not give me anything going into the future. What have I spent to make my future better, right? And then if 70% of your spend is doing nothing for your future, then what are you doing? Right? Yeah. But then you don't necessarily look at it like that. It's, I needed that jersey. I needed those shoes. But then what have you done today to capacitate yourself to have more tomorrow? And so if you track your expenditure, if you create that framework, the third thing I'll say you should do is go see a financial planner or a financial advisor. Go, right? Because they're probably divorced enough from your situation to then say, okay, this is what you want to achieve, and start being clinical about it. I say that because even people I work with, even myself, right? We can't necessarily institute what we know on ourselves, right? I will look at a company and I'll say, all right, fine, there's no way they're gonna do anything. They haven't spent anything on their capex in the last 5 years. It's capital intensive, whatever. This business is going nowhere. But I cannot look at my own balance sheet and say, I haven't done anything to improve myself in the last 4 years. It means I'm gonna stagnate. I can't do that. But an advisor can do that. They'll ask you those questions and they'll be like, so what have you done for yourself lately? So yeah, I think that will probably be key. Yeah.
No, I love that suggestion that you had of tracking your expenditure, because sometimes you just need to be confronted with the reality in black and white. Like, I literally spent 2,000 Rand on takeout this month. Does that even make sense? Or I literally, bought 5 pairs of shoes and this is how much it costs. And I think when we're confronted with the reality of our expenditure, we are more able to just, realize that this is not working, and this is just sometimes the shoes are still sitting in the cupboard unworn, but you gave into that urge when you were in the store, and you start to really interrogate your motives and why you need. And I'm not advocating that people must be walking around in tatters and not get a new car if it's something that you need. Your card is not working anymore, something like that. I'm not at all advocating for living to the point of being super frugal and uncomfortable. But we all have to get to a point, I think, where we are being honest with ourselves about what we are doing with our money, and how it's going to serve us in the future, in terms of just being financially free, I guess, at the end of the day, and saying, and whatever that financial freedom means to you, whether it means you're self-sustaining, whether it means you're a billionaire or whatever.
I think being financially free for me, I think I need to say this so that maybe 1 or 2 people actually take this. Being financially free is being able to be the you who you really are, right? At every point in time, not in the future, at every point in time. If I have $12 today and I love doing 12 different things, which things am I going to do now with the $12 and capacitate me to do more of the same things as future me with more money? If you can do that, if you set yourself up for always doing what matters to you and capacitating yourself to do more of what matters to you, then you're financially free. I think for me that's pretty much it, because you want to be free. Why? Because you want to express yourself. So you cannot defer and say, I'll express myself next year. Express yourself today. Right? But understand that today my expression today in terms of money is this much. In terms of how I take care of myself, good health and whatever, it's this much. Exercise, whatever, it's this much, right? Because you're not just your money. I really need to stress that you're not just your money, right? The money part is just a tool, right? So if you understand that, you incorporate your current tool set as you improve it to express yourself some more, right? So I think that's what being financially free is. And if you can do that and you can be deliberate and say, my financial freedom means I spend X amount of money on shoes every month. If it's intentional and it's on purpose and it's fitting into your plan, great. Just don't have stuff happen to you. But then you're like, oh, I had no idea. No, be quite deliberate. Be like, you know what, guys, stop the future, right? I'm here for a short time. I'm here for a good time. And then we know that's what you do, right?
Yeah.
You can't have you think you're going left, yet you're going right. So I think, I hope I've really emphasized that, because then everything else will follow.
And I think it's even for me, who I thought I was in a different place. You've given me a lot of food for thought and stuff to think about some more. So when someone is saying, okay, I've listened to this conversation with Kudzai and Bongi, and I want to go deeper, I want to learn more. What are some of the things you would recommend in terms of resources, tools, things like that someone can quickly go on Google or YouTube or whatever, and And by the way, Bongi's got a platform of his own that you guys can subscribe to, and I'll put the information in the description so that you can learn a lot more from him and get his gems. But what else can you recommend to people who want to go in depth and are like, okay, I need to get serious about my money and my financial future?
All right. I think if you have absolutely no exposure to the world of finance, a great starting point is, I think I read this book when I was in high school, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Yeah, I think purely because it's other than anything else, it helps you frame money. It's a framing book. It helps you look at money differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once you've done that, I think you don't need to be worried about the math. There are a lot of online calculators that can help you pretty much calculate, if I want X amount of money and this is the interest I'm being offered, how much do I put in for how long? That stuff is there. But then the next thing you need to do is invest in financial knowledge. Start with the basics. Unfortunately, I've interacted a lot with textbooks, so I don't know if anyone has a textbook that will, a book that will kind of break that down into not textbooky fashion. But I know that
Okay.
Has a YouTube. Bill Ackman has a YouTube video on how to start a business. I think he really starts very small and then he grows that whole concept for your side hustle. I think as an example, there is actually a lemonade stand, so it's quite basic. Ray Dalio has a video on how the economic machine works. It's like 30 minutes or shorter. It's probably macroeconomics in 30 minutes. Like if you do that, you probably don't need to go to college to do macroeconomics. And you don't need to do the math or anything like that. All this stuff is helping you build intuition around money. So then from the Dalio perspective, you learn how the global environment affects you. From the video from Bill Ackman, you know the micro side of things. And from Rich Dad Poor Dad, you're probably going to learn how to frame money and how to interact with money as an individual. I would add one more book, but then it's not a financial book, but it's quite important. I think it's quite key because it will help you understand yourself and not lie to yourself. That's 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos by Jordan Peterson. So I think if you do those, then you can develop your own curriculum from there. I think you should be fine.
Awesome, thank you. And what I'm going to do, I'll put that information in the description as well, so that everyone can easily reference it and look further. But yeah, I mean, I think we are at the end of our conversation. There's a couple of minutes left, and
Really?
I just think yes, it's been fun. I know. Time flies when you're having fun.
I actually thought we're halfway.
Yeah, no, unless we are, 2 minutes left to the time, and as usual, I just want to be respectful of everyone's time, so we won't run over. But essentially, as an overview in terms of what we've discussed, it's about self-awareness and being honest with yourself. Whatever your goal is, it doesn't have to be the same as my goal or Bongi's goal. Your individual goal, identify what that is. If it's YOLO, then it's YOLO, and you live with the consequences of of that. But if you're saying that you want to have a lifestyle and the income to support a lifestyle that makes you financially free, then there's certain things that you're going to have to do about it. And there's been the recommendations in terms of resources that you can use to equip yourself, and don't be intimidated. I know I was.
One more thing on the resources. I think CNBC right now is running something called Invest in Yourself, because it's Financial Awareness Month. So if you go on CNBC and then go invest in yourself or something of the sort, they've got like a tiny curriculum they're running. You can also do that, but I don't know if it'll be there after the month. So, but yeah.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay. So make sure you grab that. Financial awareness month is this month, and I did not know that. So this is fortuitous. You know, the stars aligned. But yeah, just guys, don't be intimidated by the thought of, you know, having to educate yourself a little bit more on finances. It will serve you well in your future, but you have to put in that work, empower yourself so that you can ask the right questions and make sure that whoever's managing your money is managing it the way that you need them to manage. And Min 9 Tights is saying, how do we access Bongi's platform? Please, Bongi, do you want to let them know how they can find you and all the details?
All right. I think you will say you can subscribe to my channel. It's under my name, Bonginkosi Z Ntabeni. And I post videos there, Finance Fridays, and pretty much I take questions from people and I respond to those. So you can pretty much put your question there, or if I'll take time to try to create slides and try to break it down into something that you can consume and immediately implement. So yeah, and I think Kudzai is going to share the link in the description. So yeah.
Yes, I will put all that information for everyone to be able to access. And Brian is saying, is he the one who does Finance Fridays on a Sunday? Lol.
Yeah, it's on a Sunday.
No, that's awesome. So I think we're going to call it a day. Any last words or any last thoughts that you want to share before we say goodbye?
Yeah. Whatever money you have, let it work for you. Yeah. Be deliberate about it. Let it work for you. You don't necessarily have to have $1 million. Just be deliberate about it. Some for today, some for tomorrow. Increase your capacity. Understand the action and the consequence, and you should be fine. I think you should be fine. Beyond that, you can actually get people to sort this out for you. So go out there and be the best you.
Be the best you that you can be, and one that's not broke in the future. All right.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for your time, Bongi. I really appreciate everything that you've shared. I think it's such a valuable and important conversation to have. We can't act like money is just not, it's just going to happen to us. We have to be intentional about it. And that's my main takeaway from this. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and insights with us. Guys, the video will be up on the channel. Bongi is also going to share it on his platforms, and I'll share all the information so that you can start empowering yourselves. But thank you so much for being a part of Compliance Conversations, and I'll be calling you. I have your number. I will be calling you for free advice.
Cool. That's cool. Thank you so much for inviting me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. So everybody, thanks for joining this conversation. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And, I'll keep you posted on the next compliance conversation that's coming up. It's going to be another good one. Bye, everyone.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Bye.